What's up, everybody? Good late morning, early afternoon for some of you. And yeah, I think it's time that we talk a little bit about this because this is something that I got a lot of comments on. This is something that people have been talking about on X, seen a little bit of it on Discord. At the very least, even if you're not interested, you're at least talking about it a little bit as a Seahawks fan right now, it feels like, right? Like, even if you only spend 5 seconds on it, you spent that 5 seconds. So I guess we should go ahead and have a little conversation on Jamal Adams because the Tennessee Titans, who signed Jamal Adams a few months ago, have released him. They released him because Jamal Adams requested it because he wasn't really playing. He played very, very minimal time for Tennessee. I think you could maybe count the number of plays he had for the Titans on your fingers. And he wasn't happy with that arrangement, so he said, if you're not going to play me, just let me go, and they have. So Adams is now available, and with that happening, there have been a few Seahawks fans that have wondered, could we bring him in? And there have been a few Seahawks fans who have even said we should bring him in. Now, I'm going to not be glib in this video because I think there is a tremendous tendency to be glib when you're discussing some things that do not really make a lot of sense and seem a little bit goofy, because I actually don't think that this is completely absurd. I understand where this comes from. Seahawks defense is having problems. They're not stopping the run very well. We just had an injury to a safety that's going to cost him at least the next 4 games. The safeties we have just in general seem like they're not playing all that well. Julian Love is coming off a very tough game. And it kind of feels like there could be some area where another safety, a veteran safety that has been in the league for a while, that has been on this team previously in recent years, could come in and actually make some positive contributions to help fix this. So I'm not going to be glib about this, mostly because it just happened, right? When people start talking about trading DK Metcalf, I get glib about that because we've been discussing it for years and years and years now, and I think that it's brain dead, and I'm very clear about the fact that I think it's brain dead. But that's mostly because even though I think that it's a bad idea, just like I think this would be a bad idea, it's not something that we've been beating into the ground, right? I don't think Seahawks fans have had a serious conversation about bringing Adams back since he was released. So let's go ahead and do it now. So let's talk about Jamal Adams, bringing him back. Again, I understand where this conversation comes from, right? We're having problems defensively, can't stop the run. Not really impressed with the way the linebackers have been playing the last few games. Not impressed with the way the safeties have played the last few games. So I get it, right? You see any safety out there on the market and you're like, can that guy help us? You see any linebacker come available on the market and you're like, can that guy help us? Because we're trying to win games, right? And we do have a little bit of cap space. Although I would say that that cap space is precious and I don't want to just throw it around at random players. But here's my thing. First, let's do the positives here. Jamal Adams, there are things about him that I feel like he gets the short end of the stick on. He, in his final year in Seattle, playing for a pretty bad defense, by the way, was actually very clean in coverage. What he allowed in coverage last year for the Seahawks was minimal until the last 2 games that he played. The Cowboys game, he got beat up a little bit, and then the Niners just blew him off the field. But before that, he was actually putting in some pretty good work as a coverage guy. You compare what he was allowing in coverage to a guy like a Julian Love, for example, it was night and day. So Adams earned this reputation as like being terrible in coverage over previous years, and maybe that was fair, maybe that was justified. Last year, though, he was not getting targeted that often, and when he was getting targeted, he wasn't really allowing big plays until, like I said, those last 2 games. So that is something that people don't talk about with Jamal Adams. People mock his coverage abilities. People talk about him like he's Blitz Boy. Oh, he's a glorified linebacker. He can't cover, can't do stuff deep down the field. I don't necessarily believe any of that's true. And when you look at the situation with his team right now, with Julian Love, who is giving up massive, massive chunks of yards through the air, his coverage numbers are terrible. And then you're looking at Rayshon Jenkins, who is in a similar spot. It's a little bit better for him, although that's partially because we're giving him a little bit of a break because he was playing with the busted hand. And honestly, even Kayvon Wallace and Kobe Bryant, they're getting beat up in coverage too, given the fact that they haven't played that much. So Adams does have some things he could bring to the table here. I do think that there are things he can do in coverage, like covering the hook, much better than these safeties. I think that his ability to come up and run support is probably better than the safeties that we have. So I get it on that level. Here's the thing, though. The best role for Jamal Adams to help this team right now would probably be playing linebacker. He'd be playing up in the box all the time. He'd be coming up and run support. He'd be like a weak side linebacker. He's already said he doesn't want to do that. So if Jamal Adams changes his mind, maybe that would change my mind. But as of my most recent understanding of it, he doesn't want to play linebacker, right? So if that's the role we would ask him to play and he doesn't want to play it, then it's not much of a starter, right? So that's off the board. Now you look at him as a safety. While there are some areas I think he is actually better at than a guy like Love or a guy like Jenkins or Wallace or Kobe Bryant, etc., he is not really the kind of safety that you want in a Mike Macdonald defense. And I know beggars can't be choosers, but we also want this season to be a transition to a new defense, right? We don't want Mike Macdonald to come in here and just spend the whole year running Carroll's defense or another person's defense because of the personnel. We want him to at least be able to make progress there. And Adams is not the kind of safety that tends to play well in Macdonald's defense. Macdonald likes versatile safeties, guys who can play in the box and guys who can provide free safety type reps. And that's not Adams. Adams is good in coverage, but you do not want him playing running away from the line of scrimmage. You don't want him playing with his back to the line of scrimmage. He is at his best when he's allowed to move forward at all times. When he has to flip his hips, turn around, put his back to the ball, and run down the field to keep up in coverage that way, then you have a problem. And Macdonald wants his safeties to be ubiquitous. Excuse me, struggling a little with that word. But Adams, that's not really his skill set. So those are the two main things that I see getting in the way here. Number 3, can his body even withstand much more punishment? I know he wants to still play football, good for him, but like what's he going to do when he gets out there? Is he going to play 3 plays, get hurt again, and then you're just on the hook for a little more Jamal Adams money that he can't repay with good play? Seems likely, right? We've kind of been through the Jamal Adams experience enough now. By the way, he already got hurt a couple times for Tennessee. That's part of the reason why he wasn't playing. So it's not like he has a clean bill of health ever since he left Seattle. So I can't make much sense of it. I think that you slice it up like that, it doesn't make sense. So I'm not really into this. I'm not really for this. Even veteran minimum money, that veteran minimum money matters, okay? It matters if you want to make a trade for somebody like a Jadeveon Clowney closer to the deadline. It matters for the rollover money for extensions next year, and we have a lot of players to extend, guys. I've been over it, but think about it like this. Signing Jamal Adams now, there is a scenario, it's not a super likely scenario, there is a scenario where that ends up costing you the ability to extend a player next offseason like a Boye Mafe, or a Reek Woolen, or a Charles Cross, or a DK Metcalf, or a Geno Smith, or whoever it is that you're looking to extend long term. That damages your ability. even that 1 point, what would the veteran minimum be for him? Like 1.3, 1.4 million. We already gave about that much money for the Roy Robertson Harris trade, which is already a little bit dicey. I don't need to do it again here. So to me, we're not in too bad of a spot with Julian Love hopefully figuring stuff out. I don't think everything that's happening out there in coverage is Love's fault, but he is getting smacked around right now. And I think Kayvon Wallace is a capable player. I do. He's been a capable player in this league before. He's looked good for us in camp. I'm willing to rock with that for a little while. I don't feel like Adams overall is providing significantly better stuff than what those guys are doing. I don't. And I'm not even getting into some of the other stuff because I don't know how true some of the other stuff is. Like, I know that he didn't have the greatest relationship with the media. I don't care about that. My understanding is that the players loved having Jamal Adams in the locker room and they loved him as a teammate. So that part I'm not even getting into. I'm not going to touch that stuff. I know some people would say, oh, he's toxic. I don't know if I think that. In fact, it seems like he's not. But I don't know. I don't need to be throwing another, even a small amount of money at something that is probably not better than what you already have, which has already bitten us once so far this year with the Travis Gibson trade. And we'll see what happens with Roy. But don't need it to happen again right now. So I'm definitely a no here. It's obviously not the end of the world to do it because it would be super cheap. And his contract would be completely non-guaranteed from week to week because it's already past game 1, to my understanding. But I don't see how that works in this defense. I just don't. Maybe if he changes his mind on the linebacker stuff. All right, see you guys later.